Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're completely dismantling the way you probably think about personal growth and goal setting. Seriously, if you've ever set this massive goal, bought the really fancy planner, felt a huge surge of motivation on a Sunday night, and then completely derailed by week 3, well, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to frame this whole explainer around one really powerful concept: finding sustainable momentum without having to rely on sheer, exhausting willpower. We're stepping away from the standard, recycled productivity hacks to look at a grounded, neuroscience-backed framework for literally building your future self.
Here's our roadmap for today. We've got 6 key parts. First, the canyon of failure. Then, the authenticity check, the become, do, have shift, training your neurological bouncer, frictionless daily execution, and finally, building your sacred circle.
Let's start right off with part 1, the canyon of failure, or exactly where personal growth stops.
You see, there's this massive disconnect between having a big picture vision and the actual gritty reality of getting it done daily. People usually fall into one of 2 extreme camps when they try to cross this canyon. On one side, you've got the dreamers. They're building these magnificent sky castles, making gorgeous vision boards and feeling super spiritually aligned, but they completely lack that tactical, boots-on-the-ground execution. Like, they aren't actually sending the emails. Then, on the totally opposite end, you have the grinders. These folks are executing optimized lists with literal military precision. They're up at 4 a.m., color-coding spreadsheets, but eventually, they just hit a massive wall of burnout because they feel completely hollow. They're efficiently climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. Both of these approaches fail because they're just missing half the puzzle.
So to fix this disconnect, we move to part 2, the authenticity check, where we evaluate your true motivation.
Before taking a single step, you have to run a strict authenticity check on your goal to figure out exactly what kind of motivation is driving you. We're looking to distinguish a soul's calling from a societal should. A soul's calling is intrinsically aligned with your true identity. It acts like a magnet, right? It literally pulls you forward and organically energizes you so it sustains your momentum naturally, even when the day-to-day work gets incredibly difficult. A societal should, on the other hand, is a total trap based on external expectations. It's driven purely by the pressure to conform. Think about feeling like you absolutely need to chase that VP role or buy the massive house in the suburbs, or even bake artisanal sourdough just because everyone else in your friend group is doing it. Pursuing a should completely lacks internal alignment. It forces you to rely on sheer, unadulterated willpower just to get things done. And ultimately, the clearest way to tell the difference is to just measure your energy. A soul's calling sustains momentum organically, while a societal should completely drains you, relying on finite willpower, which pretty much guarantees you'll burn out eventually.
Which brings us nicely to part 3, the become, do, have shift, where we completely invert the success model.
Now that we know what authentic, magnetic momentum actually looks like, we have to flip the fundamentally flawed script society has taught us. Society loves the have, do, become model. It tells you, hey, if I have a successful business, then I will do the work, and eventually I will magically become a confident person. That is entirely backward. The become, do, have shift demands that you cultivate the inner identity first. Instead of endlessly grinding away and just waiting to feel secure later, you have to embody the identity of the person who can sustain that success right now. Why? Because confidence actually comes from action, not from being perfect. If you try to build an empire but you're still holding on to the internal identity of an imposter, you're absolutely going to self-sabotage.
So how do we practically visualize this new identity? You have to set a timeline, but it needs to be incredibly specific. If you set a massive 1-month goal, it's just going to trigger your amygdala fear response, and you'll panic. But exactly 1 year? That is the psychological sweet spot. It's close enough to actually feel attainable so you don't get scared, but it's long enough to allow for a radical, profound transformation. Now you're probably wondering, what about the classic 5-year plan?
Well, the hard science of why 5-year plans almost always fail comes down to this really fascinating cognitive phenomenon called temporal discounting. Your brain basically creates an empathy gap. When your prefrontal cortex looks at the version of you 5 years from now, it literally processes that person as a complete stranger. And your brain simply does not care about a stranger's problems, so it perceives the future reward as way less valuable than the immediate effort required today. This makes it incredibly easy to just hit snooze and procrastinate.
Let's move into part 4, training your neurological bouncer and reprogramming your focus.
Because just having that 1-year vision isn't enough. We have to deliberately rig your brain to actually let this new reality in. Say hello to your reticular activating system, or RAS. Think of this as your brain's incredibly strict neurological bouncer. We are bombarded with millions of bits of data every single day, and your RAS filters out 99% of it just to keep you from totally shutting down. It only lets in information that aligns with your deeply held beliefs. So, if your mindset is anchored in chronic stress, your internal bouncer is actively hiding resources and opportunities from you. To give this bouncer a brand new VIP list, you have to do something that feels a little uncomfortable. Record a 1-minute, sensory-rich voice memo of your future success, phrased in the present tense, and listen to it every single day. Yeah, I know it feels kind of cringy at first, but it manually normalizes success and dramatically reduces your brain's natural fear of anything unfamiliar.
And during this daily reprogramming phase, when you're tapping into that future self, you really have to ask what baggage you need to let go of. The answer almost always comes down to this. Perfectionism is literally just fear wearing a tuxedo. It looks elegant, right? It looks highly professional, but underneath, it's just a defensive shield stopping you from making any real progress. You've got to internalize that true confidence is just the byproduct of surviving imperfect action.
To help wire this fearless new identity into your brain, we actually have to upgrade how we talk to ourselves. Standard affirmations, like staring in the mirror and shouting, "I am a millionaire," usually backfire because they instantly trigger your brain's natural lie detector. Instead, we want to use affirmations with an O, which are really just empowering questions. Rather than a declarative statement, you ask yourself, why am I succeeding at this goal? The human brain is essentially a biological search engine. It cannot resist answering a question you give it. By asking why you're capable, you totally bypass that lie detector, forcing your mind to actively scan its memory banks for past victories and undeniable evidence of your true capabilities.
All right, let's transition from all this deep internal work into part 5, frictionless daily execution. It's time to architect the do. Ambiguity is the absolute enemy of execution. It breeds procrastination. So we use a really strict system to wipe out the heavy cognitive load of making micro decisions all day. Step 1 is the what. Clearly define a bounded task. Not just work on website, but draft a 500-word about page. Step 2 is the when. Put it on the calendar as a strict, non-negotiable appointment. Step 3 is the where. Prepare the space completely beforehand. If you're scheduled to work at 9 a.m., by 8:50 the document's already open, the coffee is poured, and your phone is literally in another room. When you do this, executing simply becomes the path of least resistance. But let's be real. What happens when you sit down at that perfectly prepped desk, you're completely exhausted, and you're facing a desperately unglamorous task, like, say, doing your quarterly taxes? Well, doing your taxes protects the vision of a legally sound business, so it is an aligned action. To get through the friction, you practice what we call emotional arbitrage. You mentally step into the reality of that successful future self we talked about, vividly tune into their confidence and pride, and intentionally inject those exact feelings into your current task. You are quite literally borrowing the energy and capability from your future achievement to fund your present momentum. It's a total game changer.
Finally, we reach part 6, building your sacred circle and curating accountability.
You simply cannot maintain this new identity or this momentum in a total vacuum. You need to leverage carefully curated accountability to turn your private intentions into a shared reality. You want a sacred circle of just 1 to 3 people, and you have to curate this meticulously because not everyone belongs in it. Look at your friends and family. They provide deep, wonderful moral support, but their primary biological goal is to keep you safe. That means they will absolutely project their own fears onto your ambitions. Mentors? They're vital for sharing lived wisdom, but let's be honest, they aren't tracking your daily output. That's why coaches are essential. They provide rigorous, unbiased tracking. They hold the container for your transformation without buying into your excuses for a second.
To actually measure your abstract evolution alongside this circle, use a simple 0 to 10 scale. Once a month, rate your internal state, like your baseline confidence level, just to formalize your growth. And alongside that, practice measurement with heart by keeping a daily log of tangible acts of courage. Things like finally saying no to a bad contract. Doing this gives your brain undeniable physical proof that your identity is actually changing.
And when you do achieve those small wins, you've got to share them with your circle. The neuroscience behind this is absolutely fascinating. Sharing honest progress triggers dopamine in the brain. Now, we often think of dopamine as just a pleasure chemical, but it's actually the molecule of motivation. By consciously celebrating specific small wins, you are actively wiring your brain to associate taking hard action with feeling rewarded. It flips goal pursuit from a draining chore into this deeply self-fueling momentum cycle,
where your brain actually craves doing the hard work again tomorrow.
So take a breath right now. Recalibrate your daily routine, and remember that profound alignment really does grow through small, honest choices. I want to leave you with this one thought today. What happens if you treat moments of absolute silence not as empty space, but as the deliberate processing time your internal bouncer needs to finally download the map of your future self? The power to change is in the stillness today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep moving forward.